Welcome to another episode of the Alignment Podcast. Really excited to have here with us Giuseppe Grammatico. Welcome, Giuseppe. Thanks for coming on the show.
Jacob, thanks for having me. I know it's a mouthful, so G is easier if that's makes it easier.
What do your friends call you, and what does your mom call you?
Giuseppe is my mom. She says it, but G is my friends for the most part. Just a
All
lot
right,
easier.
G. Okay, sounds good. I was on a call yesterday with somebody, and I asked him. Somebody else had called him a nickname, and I said, "Is that what you go by?" And he said, "Well, my mom calls me my real name.
Right.
Everybody else calls me this. So if you
Right.
want to treat me like my mom, you can call me by my full name." And I thought, well, I'll call you your nickname. I don't want to start off the
Nickname
relationship like
works.
that. That's awesome. Well, is really excited to have you on the podcast. Would love to get started. If you could just tell us, where you've been and what you're doing and what's made you so excited about what you're doing right now. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm located in New Jersey, married, 2 kids. I actually have a son that's going to be entering college in September, so that's been keeping us busy.
Awesome.
Born and raised in New Jersey, worked on Wall Street. My family owned a restaurant, gave me a little bit of a taste of entrepreneurship. And Wall Street taught me that I definitely wasn't a corporate person. I worked a couple jobs, moved up the ranks, made some good money, but had a 5-hour commute and just felt unfulfilled. To be honest, I was miserable. 5-hour door-to-door commute plus work. It was a 13-hour day. It was just a basic day. So I said I could not continue. My wife and I sat down and said there's got to be a different way. So we looked at different jobs and careers and things like that. And my heart was really to be an entrepreneur. It just wasn't in the restaurant space where my family had the business, a lot of hours, long weekends and things like that. So hooked up with a franchise coach, which is what I do today, walked me through the process and was blown away to find out there's so many other ideas and brands outside of fast foods. Yeah, fast forward almost 20 years in franchising, and I help people in the exact same spot. They're not sure what they want to do. I help them evaluate franchises, figure out if business ownership is the right fit for them.
That's awesome. What was your first franchise?
We were in building services. So we did cleaning, we did building maintenance, anything that a commercial property needed. So we were kind of a one-stop shop.
That's cool. And this might seem like a really silly question, but what difference did it make for you to no longer be working in something that made you miserable?
It was night and day. I knew I was building something for myself. That vehicle that I was in, that franchise, I knew at some point, which after the first couple of years, I had a general manager, an operations manager. So I didn't have to be in the office every day. So I can attend to my son's soccer games, which I became a soccer coach from the age of 4. And from the age of 4 to 18, never missed a game. So
That's awesome.
you only live once. And if you're going to be miserable, even though the pay is good, I call it the golden handcuffs.
Yeah.
You only live once, and if you're going to be miserable, it's only going to last so long. So I always encourage people to explore owning a business, maybe even having a side business with and a job, and seeing how things kind of pan out. But you always kind of create that safety net.
That's awesome. What do you see that that's a frequent thing when people are looking at franchises and looking at getting into entrepreneurship that way is that they are dissatisfied with their current work? More that they're unhappy versus unsecure?
Yeah, it's a combination of things. It's they're unhappy. They're not liking the job. In other cases, it's like the money is really good, or they're the main income earner in the house, so they want something on the side that they can slowly build. But what I'm finding is, and this is very common, is that people are just content. I'll just suck it up and I'll do the job. I'm getting paid. And then what I'm noticing is they're having kids, just like I was starting a family. And they're like, okay, now it's really personal. Now I'm missing my son's games, my daughter's events, and stuff like that. And then it becomes a real pain point. Like, wow, I'm missing out. I hate my job, and now on top of that, I'm missing out because I only get a few weeks vacation, and I can't leave the office before 5. So yeah, you're seeing a lot more of that. It's like it used to be all about money, and now it's about time freedom. I want to control my time, and yes, make a good income, but I want to be home for my kids' events. Maybe even work from home and really kind of have control over my future.
Has that shifted in the last 20 years? The
Has it?
motivations?
I would say a big in my career. I would say coming out of COVID, it's definitely shifted. COVID was a wake up call. Like people were allowed to work from home. They got a taste of freedom, is what happened. Got to work from home. Yes, they were still working a lot of hours, no commute, and they're like, I can get used to this. And now that a lot of companies are asking their staff to go back into the office, they're like, wait a second. I don't want to go back in the office. I kind of like this. What else can I be doing, allowing me to really work from home? So I'd say, time freedom, once you usually starts off with financials, but once you dig in, you hear time freedom, the true why, being home for the family and things like that. But since COVID, I've seen a major shift. Like I gotta make a change now because, it was just a major wake up call.
Yeah. And right. So I talked to a lot of people about mostly at companies around, hey, how do you align what you're doing, your culture with what you really want it to be, and how do you help find people who align with that? Because when you can create teams where people are all on the same page and they value the same things, it's just magic, right? Like when people aren't pretending to like be interested in the things that they don't actually care about, it makes life just so much better. And so that's really cool. How many people have you helped over the last 20 years?
It's easily over 1,000. With that
Wow.
being said, not everyone had moved forward with the franchise, and I didn't expect that, right? It's more of putting together a plan for the future. Maybe they financially they weren't there, or just they didn't have the full support of the family at that point in time. In other cases, they were ready to go and they dove right in and have moved forward with the franchise. So my job really isn't. We don't sell. We have actually nothing to sell. It's more coaching than anything else. But it's figuring out the path. Is a business the right fit for you? Is a franchise the right fit for you? And then what does that ideal match look like via the characteristics of the business? There are a lot of guys that people that I work with. They're gung ho. They want to hire themselves, but they don't really have many assets or the down payment for the franchise. And I say, we can still continue coaching, but instead of looking at brands, let's put together a financial plan. Let's put together a goal of increasing the savings, cutting back on expense in order to have not just enough for the franchise, but a financial buffer.
Yeah, that's awesome. So as people dive in for the first time, what are the things that are surprising to them that might be easy, might be hard, might be more or less appealing than they thought before? And if they're working with you, it's probably less surprising.
Yeah, I mean, I said there's really few surprises when you there's obviously surprising questions that I get, but I walk them through. I tell it how it is. There's no sugarcoating. A franchise is a business. It's a business on training wheels. It's a lot of work. You mitigate risk, in my opinion, by finding the right franchise that fits exactly what this ideal business looks like. From surprises I've received over the years is I heard you can't lose money with a franchise, and I don't know where that person heard that. It's obviously a risk. How successful are people in franchises? And I get, people are always looking for stats, and I go, the stats are, in my opinion, irrelevant because we don't know the original source. In my true opinion, there are people that dove into franchise ownership and they didn't do the proper due diligence. They didn't speak with franchisees. They didn't really have a good understanding of the brand. When we work together, we spend a ton of time. There's no steps that are missed. We talk about you got to do your research, but you also have to talk with the franchise owner, the current franchise owners. So there are people that really dive in, move through the process really quickly. I like to slow them down and just say, hey, make sure you speak with franchisees. People doing it for a while. The rookies that just got in a year or so, people running it full time, people running it part time. So I bring a lot of questions and resources to the table. We bring funding to the table right in the beginning because people feel like I have the money, I'll just buy whatever. And I tell people franchises are awarded if the franchise company doesn't feel like the fit's there. And we try to obviously mitigate that, but and move away and just say, hey, we're only going to look at the right matches. If you're approaching a franchise directly and you need to be in sales and you're very introverted, probably not a good fit, regardless of the product or service. It's based off the role the franchisee is going to play in the future. So we spent a lot of time there. It's not all about fast food. You don't need to be a millionaire. There are franchises that the investment is under 100,000, and it may be expense reduction, business coaching, even believe it or not, fundraising for your local school and organization. So there's a lot of really cool types of businesses that you can get up and running in 1 to 3 months.
That's awesome. Um, so I've talked with a handful of franchise owners, and one of the biggest things that they talk about that getting into franchising is the people part is scary. that you hear all these horror stories about, obviously depending on the franchise that you have, right? A lot with the food industry, that it's hard to hire the right people and to build the teams that want to stay and to build that culture. What have you seen with that, and how do you help people think through that in the right way?
Yeah, it's something you have to be comfortable with the staff. So one of the characteristics is going to be, what does your staff look like? And what that means is, are they W-2? Are they 1099 contractors, or is it a hybrid approach? Is there any employee? I have franchises, believe it or not, that are doing well. They have no employees. So depending on the brand. So yes, finding good available staff could be difficult, but I think a franchise that really steps up, and something I encourage every one of my candidates to ask is, what is your process of recruiting good staff, good employees? Some brands will help you find a general manager if you're going to run it part-time in the very beginning. Believe it or not, a lot of brands are moving away and cutting down the staff requirement because they're outsourcing. You're outsourcing it to them, but they're doing all the marketing for you, the call center, the bookkeeping is all done at the home office. So the staff requirements less and less. But equally as important is, you find the staff, even if it's less, it goes from 5 to 3. How do you keep them on? So we talk about like phantom equity, giving them a piece of the profits, your general manager, not the underlying business, but a percentage of like basically a profit sharing, and then allowing your staff to have a career, have a future within the organization, be able to earn additional income, so that it's like, okay, do I really need this staff of 10, or can I really scale it down to 5 or 6, keeping the expense as low as possible? So that's one question I ask, how do you help with the recruitment process? Who's the ideal candidate for the sales position, for the customer service, or the admin position, and have the franchisor come back to you with ideas, suggestions, and exactly where to find those people.
That's cool. Because I'm a rookie in the understanding of the space, but because there's some kind of red tape around franchisors being involved in employment issues, correct?
Yeah, they can't hire the person for you. They're basically going to say, this is a job post that you can find. It's this is, LinkedIn. It's the Chamber of Commerce. I've had a lot of people that we've helped over the years find staff right through the Chamber of Commerce, because one business
Well,
owner
that's cool.
found someone else, and they were able to find all their staff via the chamber, and it cost them virtually nothing. They're going to give you some brands will actually have a department, believe it or not. They'll actually have a recruitment department helping you find for a fee. So it's almost like a separate department. There's a handful of brands that will offer that. We'll help you find contractors for a fee. We'll help you find employees. But for the most part, it's on the franchisee. But they'll say, hey, we've given what we've heard from the other franchise owners. Indeed is the spot, or LinkedIn, or the chamber. We're hearing more and more success stories. That's probably a good starting point.
That's awesome. Um, okay, so aside from the people, and this is obviously going to depend greatly on the business. What's the hardest part for new franchise owners? Do they Is it the shift from what they had before to something that's totally nebulous, or what seems to be the hardest part? And then also, what's the most rewarding part for them?
The hardest part is, you're walking into a new business, you're excited, ready to go, and it's like, it takes time. This is not something that's built overnight. And even though you launch relatively quickly in a non brick and mortar business, maybe you're not paying yourself, and that, but it's when you're getting a paycheck, twice a month, every other week, whenever you're getting that check, and now for the first time you're not, picking up that check. It's not easy, no matter, and it's hard to prepare for. So having the flexibility of saying, okay, I'm making this decision, and that's final. It's my decision. It's my business. Then it really hits home. Like for me, just to make any change or get any approval on anything, sometimes would take weeks. I can now make a decision, and right or wrong, it's my decision. I'm going to live with it, and I can move on. I'm not waiting. The frustration of the follow up and all the managers having to approve something. So just having the first taste of control, of freedom, I think there's nothing that beats it. And you will not know how it feels unless you actually hire yourself and run a business. But it's really rewarding. I always say I did this for time freedom, followed by financial freedom. So the last piece is this is, as I mentioned, not an overnight thing. So it's going to take time to experience financial freedom. Can you make money your first year? Absolutely. I always recommend, if you can, use it as a builder year, reinvest what you can so you can start scaling and moving away from the business and not having to work necessarily in it, but on the business. So making those bigger decisions, going to the chamber, that kind of stuff, deciding, to add another franchise, add another territory. So it's fun, but yeah, it could be nerve wracking that the first couple months. It's just it's an adjustment. But I always say my recommendation with the franchise: stay close to your coach, stay close to the franchisor. If you're stuck somewhere, if you're frustrated, contact them. Sometimes they'll travel with you, sometimes they'll coach you over the phone, but you're paying that money, so might as well take advantage of the support.
What do people look like in general that are very successful? Like what traits
Right?
and characteristics do they have that are successful in franchising?
They're coachable and they can follow a system. 1 in 5 of the families I've helped have come out of the military. 1 in 6 franchisees across the board are coming out of the military. So they can follow a playbook, a guide, a system.
Yeah.
You're not buying a McDonald's to change the menu. And you hear a lot of that. You can kind of get, they may not realize it, but when you're talking with them on the first call, I'll say, "Hey, do you really want a franchise? It sounds like you want to have real control and build the business from scratch," and which is also totally fine. If you're going to buy a franchise, regardless of the service or product, you're following that system. Your role is going to be relatively similar after the first year. It's oversight, it's the KPIs, it's things like that. Hiring great staff, taking care of your employees, and that's really what it comes down to.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Giuseppe, thank you so much for coming on the show. What if people want to stay in tune with what you share and the content you create, where can they best find you?
Yep, you go right to the website, GG, my initials, thefranchiseguide.com. A couple resources. You could book a call directly with me. All my services are free. I'm compensated like a real estate agent or executive recruiter. It's 20 minutes. We'll figure out, most importantly, together, if a franchise is even the right fit. If it is, we schedule a second call and we look at the characteristics of what you want included in that business. If you're not ready to chat, I wrote a book during COVID in 2020, took advantage of the downtime, called Franchise Freedom. I also have a podcast called Franchise Freedom. Everything is directly on the site. There's a free download. It's my exact guide to helping me find a franchise. The podcast, we cover just about any topic, from exit strategy planning to accounting to legal to everything else in between. You could just put a search in there for a topic and it'll pull up all the relevant shows. So everything is on there. Really, it's not, again, finding the right franchise. It's figuring out why you want a franchise, what the ideal business looks like, and then we go to market to see kind of what available models are available in your market.
That's awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time, and yeah, excited to see you keep growing and helping people achieve freedom through franchises.
Thanks, Jake. It was fun. I really appreciate it.